It's abundance in la cocina with our time, money, and energy.
Yes.
And there were a few topics that you wanted to talk about, but before we even jump into there, is anything you just wanted to share?
Yeah, I think the two things I wanted to share first were like that the name that we chose, I think it was very intentional because I was thinking about this, like when you think about saving money in the kitchen, and like some of the habits that come along with that, because I think about like what has been inherited generationally, what were we taught, like some of the things we were just talking about. And instead of coming at it from a place of like lack or scarcity, I think we both had this intention to come from it of like, no, like let's look at it as a place of abundance, as a place that we can make more of something, and that isn't, I'm not saying there's like, infinite amount of resources, but I think you kind of get what I'm getting at with that, right? It's like looking at it from a different perspective than of being like, oh my god, we're gonna run out, or I'm scared, or there's not enough, because I definitely know that feeling in my body. So I think that was very intentional. And I say time, money, and energy because not all of us have all three. Some of us may have one or the other, and that's depending on what you do have of any of those, is how you would approach what we're going to talk about in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And also, cooking, it takes a lot of work. Like being in the kitchen takes a lot of work. So uh, I feel like taking care of time, money, and energy in there is a form of self love.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. The other thing is like I think that a lot of the behaviors and the things that I talk about, even though I'm talking about them through the lens of as a psychologist, I realize I'm like, this is a very psychological approach. But but a lot of it also is nothing new. They're things that we learned from our ancestors. If we go back and think about the behaviors, we just probably called them something different. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to share.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I don't, we both ended up in the mental health field, right? Like, I'm a therapist, you're a psychologist, but like you said, I think a lot of things are ancestral, are generational. And I think about even the process of like making tortillas, right? It's like, it's heavy, it's work, but I always think about, I wonder how much stress and anxiety was processed in making tortillas, right? That
Mm-hmm.
movement. And then you end up with joy because it's something so delicious. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like it was our own way before there even was, especially as people here in the United States, like, or at least on this side, it there are certain certifications and like boards and all of that that we need to go through. But like in my mama's neighborhood, it was a village curandera, and like
Mm-hmm.
told you what to do, and now it's just remixing a little bit, adding like the mental health into what we already know ancestrally, and then adding the financial health in there because for generation, first of all, women weren't even like allowed to open up bank accounts or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
might be. So now it's like an empowerment. So we're going to talk about all of the things, but I know that we wanted to keep this within like, you know, the 30-minute mark. So let's jump in. There are three topics that you say
Mm-hmm.
you wanted to touch on. So habits, barriers, and less is more.
Yes.
So you want to just jump into habits?
Yeah. So I think the way that I think of saving or making the most of your time, energy, and money in the kitchen is, it definitely starts with getting to know yourself in the kitchen, getting to know your habits, and if you have a family, getting to know your family's habits. What are your preferences? Like, honestly, make an assessment of like where you are when you're starting. If you're somebody who already cooks a lot, then what the changes that you're going to make or the tweaks that you're going to make might be a little bit different than somebody who's just starting off with, like, maybe they're eating out the majority of the week or something like that. I've gone in waves. There's been times in my life where I've been like heavily reliant on eating out. There's been times where I'm cooking a lot, and a lot of it depends on how much capacity I have and what else is going on in my life. But I think like the further I've gone in deepening my relationship with the kitchen and being more intentional about, like, my goal was eat more home cooked meals or, eat more at home, even if it means, and this is something you and I have talked about, throwing chicken nuggets in the air fryer or, heating up a frozen pizza. Because if that's the thing that's going to prevent me from eating out, and it's going to get me through to me and my family to the next day, to where maybe tomorrow I do have energy to cook
Mhm.
something at home,
Mhm.
um, then those are the things that I'm going to focus on.
Mhm.
So assessing habits, what I mean by that is you're going to look at like shopping habits. Where do I shop? Um, how often am I shopping?
Mhm.
Am I somebody who shops and I go and I only get the things that I need for that week? Or do I go every 2 weeks and I get a giant load of stuff, right?
Mhm.
And again, all these questions that you're looking at are going to inform what changes you can make when you are planning, like strategically planning of like, okay, wait, where can I make little tweaks? And I'll get to that part right now because I think this is important. But um other habits are when I buy this, when I buy, after I go grocery shopping, do I use all the things that I buy?
Mhm.
Or am I somebody, and this is a personal example, who fills up my fridge because I want to see it full, but then I'm throwing things away because I can't see them, or I didn't have the energy and time that week to use them up, but I just wanted to see my fridge full. That was the thing. And then I had to be like, all right, Crystal, it's okay. Like, you don't have to have, that goes back to the scarcity thing, right? But I'm saying, like, I had to learn over time to buy most only what I needed, and then maybe have a few extra things that just like brought me joy.
Mhm.
But that's a habit. Or are you somebody who doesn't buy enough food, right? Because it could be the opposite. You don't buy enough, and then you're like, oh, I only need this, but then you end up eating a lot out because you don't know what to do with
Yeah.
the things that you bought or something.
Yeah.
Are you a planner? Do you plan, or do you not? Do you wing it? I've found that even just like very basic planning, and I think you shared some of your organization habits. That's your like wheelhouse right there. That's in your
Mhm.
wheelhouse.
Mhm.
But even if I just grab a notebook and I'm like, okay, these are the ingredients that I have, and I start to get my brain jogging, and I just think like, okay, I can make quesadillas. I have like chicken that I can cook, and then I can shred it and make something else, like a very basic meal plan. It
Mhm.
will make it much more likely that I'm going to cook that week.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe you don't plan at all, but this is where the most important thing I think is like being very honest about where you are currently and picking the easiest change, like the easiest place for you to make change.
Yeah.
Because I feel like oftentimes we make these really big goals or very general goals. Like if I'm like, I'm going to eat out less.
Mhm.
Okay, how am I going to eat out less? Because I've definitely set myself up for failure and be like, we just need to eat out less. But I walked in and I didn't have a plan, or I wasn't honest about like, well, how much am I really eating out? Okay, let's reduce that by one day.
Mhm.
That one day I'm going to replace, I don't know, Chick-fil-A with chicken nuggets, right? Like you see, so now I'm replacing that. Now I have a plan. Now I have an actual tangible thing that I can do to replace that.
Yeah.
Um, I just said a lot, so I don't know if you have like
Yeah.
questions or you want to chime
No,
in.
I think for me what comes up is what I try to like teach with anything. It's in any area of health that we want to improve, it's not gonna just it might just miraculously happen. I believe in miracles, but there's also our part, like sometimes we got to put our part. So just slowing down enough to be like, what do I want and why? And I think we have to move past superficial reasons. And I'm not saying like things like losing weight or looking good are not valid reasons for some people, but I do think there has to be like for me, right? Like if I'm gonna work out and eat healthier, I want to live a long life so I can enjoy my child and maybe future children, or like I want to have energy to be able to like run around with her because she's very active, or again, we wanna go on a vacation or a cruise. So
Mm-hmm.
I know that we spend a lot of money eating out. So if I really want that, I'm willing to go through the hard work of cooking or figuring out, getting through the barriers I know we'll talk about to make that a reality. And then you have that. And the second thing that came up for me was definitely the planning. So 100%. I actually have a YouTube video from last year too. I think you saw it too, where it's like just starting simple. What do I already have
Mm-hmm.
in my pantry that could be a meal? And like, oh, I have this. And then thinking of simple ideas and where I like to bring in the joy. Like, what are some things that like growing up I really like to eat? You know, and tapping back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I really loved corn. You know, I love corn. If you know me, I
Yes.
love corn. It's like, hey, that's a little snack, you know? So if, especially as I talk about postpartum a lot, it's learning how to feed yourself again after having a baby is like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a whole learning curve. And for me, it did have to start with joy. Like, what do I enjoy? And that's why you see so many chorizo burritos on my reel because
I
they
love it
bring
though.
me joy, you know? And
Yes.
that was one of the first foods I remember having energy to make myself because I was like,
Yes.
like, I remember loving the smell and like all of
Mm-hmm.
the things. So writing it down, being like, what are like a couple of breakfast options for this week, a couple of lunch options, a couple of dinner options, and some snacks. And just
Yes.
being like, all right, I got something now. And none of this is Jack in the Box tacos, right? I'm not
Yes.
saying there's not a time and space for there. I know Cassie, you and I
Yes.
talked about it, but it's like, ooh, I can't eat that every day. Especially now I'm in my mid 30s. My stomach can't.
Or
And I
not
don't
just
want my daughter
to
to
float.
only want, you know,
Yeah.
you want her to want other stuff too. So, yeah, very much real habits, slowing down, stepping back, not shaming yourself. Be like, this is kind of the wave of how I eat
Yes.
currently, and how do I want to eat?
Exactly. And I think you touched on a lot of things like the seasons of your life, right? How much energy you had during that time. There is an emotional component to food. Like, I don't care. I can't talk about being in the kitchen without thinking about memories and emotions that are attached to it. So I understand there's a place, for some people it's very triggering if they have like eating disorders or they've had negative associations with food and stuff like that. There's also a lot of positive associations. So when you're talking about making a chorizo burrito, that hits so many notes for you, right? And that it makes sense. And I think that I like what you said about finding reasons to motivate you that are important to you. I know for me, like something that really made things click and made me work a little bit harder and be more intentional about cooking more at home was that I'm like, it just makes sense. It would be silly for me not to. Like, I'm trying to work on my finances, my current political view values, right? Like, I don't want to give my money out to more than I have to, because sometimes there are times where I'm not prepared, and then that's when I do end up eating out more or something like that. And then but now I can see, I'm looking at it non-judgmentally, and I'm like, okay, like my kid was sick, I didn't plan, it was a Monday, like, all the factors that play into it. But um I want my family to eat healthier. I want to have a connection with my ancestors. And so all those things add up to motivate me to keep going, rather than just again setting some broad goal, or making it something that was outside of me that I don't really care about, right? And when we look to other people and say like, yeah, you have to find your reason why
Mm-hmm,
you want
mm-hmm.
to do it. So,
Yeah, I love that. I know the next thing we were going to talk about is barriers, right? So some of the barriers to cooking and eating more at home.
okay. So, I would say that planning and organization is a big one. But
Mm-hmm.
again, you can look at your own life, because maybe that's the first thing I thought of, because I know that's been my biggest barrier. But for other people, it could be time. Like I don't have a lot of time to cook more at home. And so my suggestion for that, I used to say this more in the past, but like there are levels to eating out at home. There are so many things now. There are so many ways that you can eat at home that don't require you eating out. And it can range anywhere from having foods that are already cooked delivered to your doorstep, which means you're going to be throwing it in the microwave, right? But you're still getting maybe like fresh, nutritious food. There's meal kits that you could get that have everything portioned out. There are all kinds of boxes that you can sign up for where you get a protein box or like there's this company, Butcher Box, I think, or something. I don't know. You can get meat delivered. Then there's frozen food that they sell at the store. You can get frozen food at Costco in bulk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you get boxed food. And I'm naming all the things because I want to show really like the range. And there's so many things before then you get to like semi homemade. Okay, I'm gonna pair this ingredient with like a rotisserie chicken that I'm gonna shred and make something with, right? Before you even get to like the final like last thing is, oh, I'm gonna make every single component of my meal homemade, and that's like I'm saving that for maybe once a year or once a month or something. But
Mm-hmm.
um I think you kind of get what I'm saying, that you look at, if the
What
example
level
was
of,
time.
yeah.
If the time is the issue, then you see, okay, where can I fall on that before I end up eating a meal outside of my home? Or even if you do eat at home, I just made a video about this. How do I strategically eat out and buy foods that I can make me last for multiple meals and that are still providing me with some nutrition, right? Because when we're talking about abundance and money, maybe it's not just about saving money in the short term. Maybe it's about saving money in the long term for your health, because you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to have to, pay for it down the line because you are constantly eating foods that don't make you feel good,
Yeah.
right? So,
100%. Yeah,
yeah.
even like I know that especially if you're in the beginning of your journey of learning how to eat at home, of or again, either you don't feel like you have as much energy or time to even creatively think about a meal, it's okay to start basic, right? And it's
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm,
if you look at even the cost and what's included in like a Pizza Hut pizza versus like, oh, a margarita pizza that I got from the freezer section, I'm pretty sure the frozen pizza is gonna have less of like the greasy oil, and it's
mm-hmm,
also gonna be much cheaper. Like I think we always this is just like a mom hack, a new mom hack. There's always at least a couple frozen pizzas in the freezer because we
mm-hmm.
never know when is that day that it's like, yeah, there's no cooking going on, but
Yes,
we're also not gonna spend $30 for some oily pizza. You know what I
yes.
mean? It's just not worth it.
Well, and I think this ties back to the getting. Actually, I don't know if I specifically mentioned this, but when I was talking about getting to know your habits, understanding your food preferences. So you just shared one, right? Like your go-to might be frozen pizza. Me, we always have some sort of like nuggets in our in our freezer. My family's food preference right now, and I also say right now because maybe you get tired of it, then you change it later, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and your kids too, right? Like, or for like your family, it's like, okay, I know spaghetti is. And you know
Hmm.
what? Even I discovered with spaghetti is like they have like the healthier noodles, you know? So
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
if we're like, okay, we want to have, healthier spaghetti, then that's like maybe that could be a move where we get spaghetti that's made out of veggies or like
Hmm.
extra protein.
Protein, yes.
Yeah, or you can make it with ground turkey instead of ground beef, or that's
Mhm.
when you can start experimenting a little bit as you baby step. Yeah.
And I love what you said about keeping it simple in the beginning, like literally 2 to 3 ingredient meals.
Mhm.
Quesadillas. I love quesadillas, and I know you've made reels about this in the past too, like and talked about that, right? You literally just need cheese and tortillas, and if you want to go beyond that, great.
You
But
could throw some of that shredded chicken,
shredded
whatever you
chicken,
want.
some beans, whatever you want to throw in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I'm trying to think of other barriers. Energy is another one. Which to that I would say pick a time in the day that you're able to get in the kitchen if you can. Um, like for example, I realized that during the week I would try to force myself to cook on certain days, and I would never hit the mark because I'm like, girl, by the time Thursday comes around, you don't have energy to be in the kitchen. So
Yeah.
now cooking at the beginning of the week because you probably have the most energy.
Mhm.
Um, and if you cook, I promise you, if you cook 2 meals out of the week, it'll get you through Monday, at least through Friday, because you're going to be able to reuse those leftovers.
Yeah. And
Um,
one thing I wanted to share too about the energy is I know for me, pairing cooking with something that I already enjoy. So it's like I'm a podcast girly.
oh,
So
yes.
it's like there is just something about being able to have listen to a conversation while I'm cooking and it brings me joy and then I'm moving my body, right? It feels like a whole thing. And of
Hmm.
course it's like I have a toddler, so some in the beginning right now there are certain days using daycare, so I tend to cook a little bit more on those days. But it's like, hey, I use screen time strategically. It is what it is. You know, it's like
Oh,
I'm gonna
yeah.
be right here. I know what you're watching because what matters most
Hmm.
to me is like just knowing what you're watching and limiting, right? Like
Yes.
not all day on the screen, but be like, I'm gonna make something and even including her too in the process. I know she's still 2.5, so she's not into there cutting with me. But like if I'm cooking something, I'll let her taste test, or be like, mommy's cooking this and she'll kind
Hmm.
of go between now she's at the age where she can, go and watch her show for a little bit, come check in with me. But
Yes.
it's like eventually she's gonna be in there with me, but
Hmm.
bringing joy to it in that way too. Be like, okay, what else do you like to do? Maybe
Yes.
make that part of your me time, especially if you're stay at home, it's really hard to have me
Uh,
time. So it's like I'm just
yes.
gonna have this earbud in and just listen to an adult conversation, or adults having a conversation. I see you, you're safe. I'm gonna be chopping over here or whatever it may
Yes.
be.
Absolutely. I love listening to music. I make my little
Mhm.
playlist
Yes.
sometimes and I'm like bumping my music. You just made me think of something else. When I have been out of the kitchen for a long time and I'm struggling to get back in the kitchen, I've found that bringing like my spirituality into it helps too. So I'll start by moving the energy by like lighting an incense or doing
Mm-hmm.
or like putting burning some copal, so that I start by doing like a kind of clearing
A reset.
in my kitchen, yes, to kind of reset, and it helps me to get back in that groove
Mm.
again.
And it gets you in the mood too, because I don't know about you, but I feel like when you're burnout parenting or you're burnout momming, it's like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to
Oh
do this,
yeah.
and you just
Yes.
carry this like stank, kind of like I get it
Uh-huh.
because it's a lot you do, right? But it's like being able to step back and be like, what do I want to eat today? What do I,
Hmm.
what I mean? And it doesn't mean that the load is still not a lot. And it could be that you need some help, It
Yes.
could be, hey, you're watching the baby while I cook, or you
Hmm.
got Wednesdays, Thursdays, I got Monday, Tuesday, you know what I mean? I'm all for that. But there's also like so much power in being able to step and be like, what do I want this next, while I cook? What do I want the flow to
Hmm.
be like? What do I want to be eating? Like, and being able to step into that abundance, not just survival, like it just has to get done just cause. It's like you deserve to have joy even when you're working, like, and cooking is working.
I think I think that that ties back to like what I said in the beginning about the name that we chose, right? Like the approach of like I have to do this in order to survive, which is somewhat true, right? But like we also have a lot of conveniences now, and it's so much easier to just go out and get food. But doing it, looking at it more so like as a joyful thing, as something that like I get to step into the kitchen, I get to do this, and it gets to be my me time, like you're saying, right? And making kind of yourself excited for it, and turning it into something positive, right? Because you're right. I think psychologically, it does matter how you approach it and the associations that you make with it. Because I'm smiling as I hear you talk about your journey with like your daughter going in there and like even the communication with your partner, because those are all things that I definitely navigated with how my relationship changed with the kitchen and cooking after I had kids. Um, and I'm saying that because there are times where my kids would go in there and I had music playing and we have dance parties. It still happens. Like they hear me And then they come and I hear them like mouthing the words to the songs. I'm like, oh yeah, it's getting in their little subconscious brain.
Yeah,
They're gonna remember this, like, the
yeah.
music and the smells and all of that.
Yeah,
So
and that's beautiful, like generation. Instead of like having a memory of like, oh yeah, my mom was always mad in the kitchen and she was always yelling at us to stop touching stuff, versus like,
yes,
oh, my mom was dancing with me, you know, and like
yes,
it is like good for them because real talk, like we all gotta eat, right? So it's
uh-huh,
like it's not like
exactly.
food, like again, even like how talk when we talk about money, it's like what kind of relationship do I want my daughter have with money? I'm thinking about the same with food. I don't want her to be self-conscious all the time of like, oh, this makes me fat, quote unquote,
Mm,
right? Because
mhm,
that language has just been passed down, but it's like, no.
mhm,
It's like this food gives me energy. Yes, this food makes my stomach hurt a little bit. This
mhm,
food like helps me have like my brain be more awake. Like I want her to
yes,
have those type of relationships, not like good food, quote unquote good food, bad food. It's like no.
mhm,
Every food has pros and cons and different benefits, you know? It's like, yeah, this
yes.
food does make me groggy or it makes you way too hyper and crash out, you know, or whatever it might be.
That reminds me of I went to this plática with the Dr. Claudia Cerrato. I love her. I'm like I love her work. I love everything she talks about. But one of the things that talks about often is how food carries memory and information. And she I remember she talked about something like how the information that's given to us and communicated with us through food could also be like through how our body responds to it, right? So what you just said right now, like, oh, maybe this gives me a stomach ache, or maybe this makes me fatigued. And so there's an exchange happening there between like you and the food, right? And so that I think that helps when you think of it that way, it also helps to take away from the
Yeah,
negative talk or the other way of
same
the
cycle.
black and white way of looking at it.
100%. Yeah. Because I know, for example, there was a season in my life I could eat a whole bag of hot Cheetos, right? I didn't realize that I was like stress eating. I was just like, I
Yes.
need comfort. The older I got and the more I realized like, oh, I'm numbing myself
Mm-hmm.
with certain foods or certain activities. Then that's when I was
Mm-hmm.
able to like pause and breathe. Like, I'm still gonna have some hot Cheetos. Don't get me wrong, but I might eat a whole bag now because I know it makes my stomach hurt. It's not the best for me. And also, like, if I'm stressed, like, just downing a whole bag isn't what's going to be the best for me either. So
Mhm,
it's like,
mhm.
you have more of a connection. Um, but anyway, I know we're kind of wrapping up, but the last thing you were going to talk about is less is more. So you should expand on
Yes.
that.
Okay, so this is actually something I'm gonna share too. I have my little reel drafted already. I want people, if this whole month they remember nothing else, and I will say this again, I want you to remember that less is more in the kitchen. So start with less ingredients. Try to keep less stuff in your fridge. Um, and I say that like obviously have enough, right? But what I mean is that have enough so that you can see it, that if you move things around, you can easily find things and you can spot the ingredients. Because if you don't see it, you're going to forget about it or it's going to get stuck behind the fridge. And what I've found time and time again is like if I have a couple of prepped ingredients, let's say beans, chicken, and rice. I can like mix and match those things
Mm-hmm.
throughout the whole week, right? But instead of cooking, because I used to think of cooking as like I have to cook every single day. And it's not like that because if I cook every single day, I have tried that in the past and then I would end up with too much. And then I didn't have what's the word I'm looking for? I wrote it down because I was going to say not capacity, but like, I'll just use that word for now. But like, I couldn't manage
Mm-hmm.
how much I had, right? So being honest with yourself about that too. How much can I manage? If you're somebody who can manage a lot, then maybe it's different. But I think less is more because that means you're going to get more creative. You're going to spend less time out there looking for more stuff. You're going to be more likely to use up the ingredient. I think of it like with kids. If they have one toy, you best believe they're going to find a million ways to play with that one toy. So it's
Mm-hmm.
the same thing with, I think, with food and cooking. If you have this one ingredient and you really get to know it and you get to know its flavor profile and its texture and its smell and what it pairs well with, you're going to be able to use that one ingredient a million different ways.
Yeah.
So that's my message. That's my like, I'm gonna run that home. Less is more
Yes, yes,
in the
I love
kitchen.
that. Yeah, and I think again, bringing it back, I love how you mentioned like we don't even need to cook every day, right? Just being like, okay, maybe Monday is we prep stuff for Monday and Tuesday, and then
Hmm.
Wednesday is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is frozen day, you
Yes,
know, only frozen foods or whatever it is, you know, and then Saturday, whatever, something else. But yeah, mixing it up. I
you
want
just made
people
me.
to follow you. What were
Yes,
you saying?
sorry. I was gonna say you just made me think of something that I'm like, epiphany. I never included frozen food in my meal plan, and I would always just write like takeout on that day. But now I'm gonna include frozen. I'm gonna put frozen on one
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
days.
Thursdays for us, real talk, is like our frozen days because again, or Thursdays or Fridays because it's usually the days I work more hours and I just don't have the capacity. And it's like we will
Yep,
survive if it's and we haven't really been eating out as much unless it's like a special thing, you know. And I think it makes eating out a little more special. Like, ooh, I really want that food, you know, from that
agreed.
restaurant, or we're gonna go celebrate somewhere. Frozen Friday,
Frozen
yeah,
Friday. That's gonna be the
yeah.
new thing.
Bring it, yeah. So definitely share with people how they can follow you and what you got, whatever you
Yeah,
want to sneak peek.
what I got cooking. Yes.
Really, really.
Yeah, you can follow me at Mindshifter 108. I also have helped to run a clinic called the Male Trauma Institute where I'm talking more about men's issues, but also just like psychology in general. I'm starting to share more about what my favorite topics in psychology and other topics related to mental health. I have like a lot of things happening in the background. This Sunday, I'm going to be doing a live cooking event, cooking class with Quiero Más Comunidad. Did I say Saturday? It's Sunday. Sunday. Um, we're going to be making tacos de carne asada and nopal, and we're gonna pan make the tortilla. So that's gonna be our thematic component,
Fun.
our mindfulness component. What else do we have going on? You and I are planning some things in the back. We're hoping to host a group. I won't say too many details yet, but like we're that's in the works. And I feel like there's something else cooking or food related. It'll come back to me, but you can follow me there and I'll be posting about stuff that's coming up. This was the other thing I was excited about was
Oh,
talking about this, but I'll continue to share more tips and tricks this whole month about saving money and making the most of your time and energy in the kitchen.
awesome. Yes, I love it. And I think, yeah, y'all can follow my page. See, I know for sure this Saturday I have the building generational wealth class.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but that's a little bit of everything, all kinds of wealth. Ooh, scrapbooking.
Yes,
Um,
scrapbooking in La Cocina. Girl, Cassie and we're gonna meet up about that.
Yes, yes. There's a lot of cool collaborations coming, but it's all about our health and wellness. It's really about the relationship, the behaviors, the little mini habits that we have in any area really of life that you're like, you know, I think I want to pour a little more into that area and
Mhm.
shifting the priorities as need be. Maybe it means that you know something doesn't get organized or so, like let me just share one quick example. For me, getting back into the kitchen looked like, all right, my daughter is napping for 30 minutes. What am I going to
Ooh,
do with 30 minutes? I could
yes.
go clean this over here, organize that, but no, I want food. I want some yummy food. And for me, it
Mm,
meant prioritizing that over all of my other projects. So I think it really comes down to it because there is, you know, cleanup and there is time and all that, but not everything is a priority. This is like,
right.
but whatever that area that you want, you know, you deserve to have joy in that area. So, thank you for being
Absolutely.
here, Crystal. We appreciate your wisdom. Excited to
Thank
see all your stuff
you.
blossom. Thank
Thank you
you.
for inviting me.
Yeah, bye. Thanks
Bye.
everyone who joined. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation. I want to encourage you to keep nurturing yourself and your journey in motherhood or to share with the mama that you know. First of all, I would love if you could subscribe or follow along to the Millennial Theramom podcast, Instagram, and YouTube channel to show your love, to show your support, and to make sure this information gets out to all mamas and new parents. Secondly, definitely go ahead and grab your free Grounded Motherhood Guide at millennialtheramom.com/free resource, or you can just look at the tabs on the website. Check out the Escuelita, our virtual learning community, also on millennialtheramom.com. And last but not least, You can explore the Grounded Motherhood Tiendita for cafecito links and few more goodies that are coming out soon, including a Spanglish poetry and journal. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you continue to nurture yourself and ground in your motherhood. Cuídense.